Believe it or not, I'm actually a bit rusty collage wise. Even though I try to post weekly, I've actually fell behind. I had some collages that were already done on video. That's what you are all seeing on my weekly posts. And I haven't had a chance to do a lot of collaging. I know that just doesn't make sense, but it's what happens. However, I wanted to get back into the groove, and I've shared before, I do a lot of cutting, and that makes me think. So I was cutting through these magazines. This was from my little Vegas venture. I have these wonderful, I think it's German motor magazines, Cycle World. The imagery in these vintage magazines, because they were like from the mid 70s, early 80s, oh my goodness. And then this magazine, I have no idea where I got it, but I'm so thankful that I did. It's called Afar. Absolutely gorgeous imagery in it. You can never go wrong with an architectural digest. And then there's this gem, this National Geographic from 2000. So I'm in that generation now where, wow, 2000 was about 10 years ago, right? And no, it's not. We're talking it's vintage now. This guy is definitely going to make way into one of my collages someday. So I was just thumbing through these magazines. Nothing really in mind because honestly, like I said, feeling rusty, so I just wanted to do a little cutting. Cutting always soothes me. So I got a lot of interesting imagery. Too much imagery, so I have too much to do. I cut a little template out. I thought he looked kind of cool. I might use him in this collage. She is going to make way into one of my collages someday. I'm not sure if it's going to be this one because I already kind of know what direction I'm going in. I did cut this out for what I thought was going to be a video, and it didn't work out. So I am keeping it because, as I've shared before, I love the look of mechanics and machinery, kind of a steampunk feel to it, especially when you can't determine what it is. So this might definitely show up in today's video. Vintage boots and a goldfish. Can you go wrong, really? And again, from that German magazine, a wonderful vintage image of this gentleman having a cigarette. Another fish, so I'm getting a little bit of a fish theme going on here. And drum roll please, I think he is going to be my focal point. It's just going to happen. And this image, my focal point, and this both came from the same magazine. I think I want to use this for the background, and then a Cartier advertisement. Not the whole thing, just this. Again, I like the theme going on, and I like the red. Whether or not I use that red, at least the Cartier has some red tones to it. Even if I cut everything out red wise, we're still going to have something of a reddish tone in that jewelry that's going to show up. So I am going into this general direction. This guy, I think he'll be too much if I include him, so I'm going to set him off to the side. I know what I want to do with these boots and these fish. Kind of has a Pisces feel to it, doesn't it? I have this Ankh. I think that's how you pronounce it. I might be using that. I'm not sure. I'll let you know. And let's get cutting. We're dealing with paper that is not quite 50 years old, a little shy of 50. This Motor Rad magazine, the German magazine, was from 1977. So this is vintage paper. This is old paper. Its intention was never to be art paper. So I really have to treat it with kid gloves. I've talked about cutting vintage paper before. I'm just going to talk about it again because it bears repeating. So whenever I work with vintage paper, I make sure that I cut very carefully when I'm dealing with the X-Acto knife. I prefer not to use my X-Acto knife when dealing with vintage paper because it tends to be more breakable, more crumbly, but sometimes I have to use this X-Acto. When I have to use the X-Acto, this is what I do. If it's a straight line like this, the X-Acto can be used, but I can also use my scissors, which ideally I can. This is more of a concise, small area. So what I do is I pierce the paper with the tip of my X-Acto, and I very carefully start bringing the blade down. But as I do that, as I make the cut, my finger follows, holding down the space, the paper that was already cut, keeping it kind of taut, but really just keeping it in place because we're dealing with fragile paper now. And I follow the blade. You see, I'm kind of like, my fingers even overlapping the blade, not the sharp part, it's just the top of the blade, but I'm still, being careful here. And just following the blade as I draw it down. And I go slow. This paper actually has a lot more tensile strength than I thought it would, so I'm pleased because it's making my job a little bit easier. I did not switch out my blade, but the blades seem to be fairly sharp. A sharp blade is ideal also when you're dealing with vintage paper or really any paper. Coming towards an area here of the feet, and I'm just going to pull it all the way down. The reason I want to use the X-Acto knife right now is we're going to have some finger action here. I want to make sure I cut that just so, and same process, following the line of the image. That's where I'm doing the cut, and I keep my other finger following it. See, this is where it starts getting it starts scrunching up, it gets a little crunchy, and that's where it gets a little frustrating when you're dealing with vintage paper. And I'm just going to give it a little tug. Oh, no, I'm not done yet, so I'm not going to do any more there. See, this is where I get frustrated with vintage paper. It's not really clean. The craftsmanship is not precise. Sometimes I have to come in with the blade and cut a little bit more just to clean it up a little bit. It's good. It's not a bad cut. I would prefer to use my scissors here. Let's just go ahead and free the thumb. Okay, we did pretty well with that. I'm going to free the thumb. There. So not too bad. And I'm going to come in with my scissors. Need to still be careful. I'm not cutting anything vital here off my guy. And I'm going to just follow the line of the image of the arm with the blade of my scissors. I don't need to have my finger follow, of course. The scissors are nice and sharp, and we should be good. So I'm going to continue cutting in time lapse. So that was a fairly successful cutout. What I also want to share is the experience of art school. If you're in art school right now and collage is something you're really interested in, those life drawing classes, when you have the models that you work from, live model, I learned a lot in those classes, and it really helped me with composition, dealing with positive and negative space, and also in terms of the human body. The human body does not have any straight lines. So as I am working with this human body, I realize with either my X-Acto or my scissors, you tend to want to cut a straight line. So it's just something to bear in mind when you're working with a human form and you're cutting it out of a photograph. There's no such thing as a straight line in the human body, unless that's what you're going for with your collage creation. And those fingers were a little tricky for me. I tried them with the scissors. It came out okay. I just wanted to get rid of that blue background, even though there are hints of the blue background along the lines of this subject's body. Also, I'm not sure if I'm going to be keeping the head or the feet because I have an idea of what I would like to do. And I'm just cleaning this area up here. It was a little snaggy and crumpled up because of the vintage paper. So what I wanted to do next, this also came from that motorcycle magazine, these boots. I love black and white juxtaposed with color. And even though this color, it's kind of washed out because again, we're dealing with something that's over 50 years, almost 50 years old now. And let's see, what I wanted to do, there's just something about the boots being on the feet like that. May be difficult to see. I apologize because of the black background. I'll just use this red background so maybe you can see it a little bit better. And I was just playing with that a little bit. And if I did that, I don't want the feet to appear at all, so I actually will probably be cutting the feet off. I also want to use this fish imagery, and then again this background. I need to do a little bit more cutting. I'm going to go back to time-lapse and do that. This little guy was cut out in time-lapse, so I'm not going to be able to show you what I was doing. There's a lot of translucency going on in this photograph. It's really quite beautiful, but it's also very difficult sometimes to cut when you're a collagist. What I like to do is take that artistic liberty and maybe sharpen up his little fins or give his tail a nice curve. I just went ahead and did that whether or not the real animal has those those kind of curves or points. Who knows, but it's mine now. I can do what I want with it, but it still reads as a fish. So I welcome you to go ahead and feel free to do the same when you're working on your own collage. Just realize that sometimes it's impossible to cut the imagery out precisely because you are dealing with translucency and light and lines that can't really be delineated. And the fish, like the human body, is also biomorphic. There are no straight lines, but it's also collage, and you can be absurd if you want to and have a good time with it. So that's what I was doing with that little guy. I don't know what this illustration is. I really love it because of the color and how unique it looks. Maybe it's just simply the fact I can't identify what it is why I am so drawn to it. And I believe it's going to be making way into this collage. It also came from, again, the same magazine as our focal point. And it fits pretty well with him. Nice contrast. We also have some fish going on, but then I reminded you of the boots also. But we have some fish. We have 3 fish. This was a barracuda that was cut out of this book. I will show you really quick. It's an old Sunset book on fishing. Actually, the cover had some great images. Not so much on the inside, but you never know. It might work its way into one of my collages someday soon. This came from the Goldfish picture, something like this, and I like it because it looks a little weird, and it kind of fits with our background being a kind of like a blueprint. I may or may not keep it. I do want to keep the Cartier jewelry though, and that kind of goes with it too. Now I thought about cutting off his head, and I thought about cutting off his feet, and I haven't exactly decided yet if that's what I'm going to do. Seems a little harsh, but that's where my thinking's at. And I wanted to give him this necklace. Thought it was a little interesting, and I wanted it to go around his neck. I think I can do that. I just need to trim a little bit more, and I want it to be really, really precise. So I will put that around his neck. Now I thought about cutting off his head, and the reason being was I wanted to maybe give him a fish head. Do I want to give him a fish head? It doesn't stand out very well. None of these fish imagery, I don't know. I can always go back to my other fish book. That one's pretty strong. I don't know if it'll work. I'm just going to cut this out really quick, this steelhead trout. I'm going to just cut it out really quick and make a decision from there. And I'm going to cut the whole thing out in case it doesn't work out, because if I cut just the head off and then I leave off the body, I might be disappointed because I want to use the whole image later. So I'm going to cut the whole image out because I may want to use the whole image later in another collage and not this one. I think if I do use it, I'm going to be using the head, so I won't be remiss if I cut cleanly around the head region. I'm not going to worry about the rest of the body because I may or may not be using it for this collage. If I do, awesome, but I don't need to worry about cutting out the entire fish right now. I am going to cut out his mouth area, his mouth region. I'm going to use the X-Acto for that. This is a book cover. It's a lot stronger, so I have to press a little bit harder. I could use my scissors for this, don't feel like it. Yeah, this is really thick. Yeah, but I could use my scissors if I wanted to, just like I was earlier with the body. But the X-Acto's working pretty good. Okay. I'm not even cutting his head off yet because I'm not sure if I want to do that. That might look good. Oh my gosh. You know, I'm going to do it. Ouch. But I'm going to keep this part because I've seen some really interesting collages on Instagram, the different people that I network with and inspire me, and they've been using just like the bottoms of fish for some collage. It looks really cool, so you'll definitely be seeing that in my work. Okay. Here we are. So this is what it would kind of look like. He would have a head like this. And let's see how it looks with this background. I don't think it's going to conflict too much. Yeah, that stands out. I think it stands out okay. It's definitely going to read as a fish head. And I'm going to just cut a little more space here. Because actually, it needs to contrast with the Cartier. So it really needs to contrast with that. I think that it's not bad. I had thought about this guy too, but the head was so much tinier, but it's a little bit better. Not our goldfish because it's black and white. So could even do something like this. And do a little bit of tucking. We don't have to do any cutting for this tucking. And there his head is gone, but I didn't have to cut it off. Nice green background. Hey, get in there, guy. Get behind that shoulder. Okay, nice green background. Just playing here. I think I want to put this goldfish here. And again, just some gentle tucking, no cutting. Here we go. So it'll be something like this. That looks kind of fun. We want to be absurd here. It's always fun to be absurd. So I want to use okay, so here we go again. So it would be something like this. And then there is our ankh. Oops, backwards. I'm not sure. And then something like this, maybe. Let's think about it just a little bit more. I am reluctant to cut his head off just yet because I don't know if I want to use the steelhead trout or this, I think it's a brown trout. I apologize to my fishing friends. Not sure which one I want to use or if I'm even going to use it. So I'm going to concentrate on his jewelry, which is this ankh. which I got from one of my Egyptian books. And I love the Egyptian iconography. I just don't use it very much. And going back to the boots that I applied down here with tape, gotta be really careful when you use masking tape. This isn't my artist tape. I don't know where it went. So I'm using this masking tape, and if you're in a bind, you don't have artist tape or drafting tape, you can use regular masking tape. Just be really careful with it and remove a lot of the adhesive by applying it onto a flat surface, a clean flat surface, so you can use it, and you can use it for several times during a project. The problem with it though, with vintage paper, it will rip it faster than anything else. So you're taking a chance when doing what I just did. So be very careful is what I am definitely trying to say when you are using masking tape on old vintage paper like this. We were successful. I didn't have any issue, but just a word to the wise. So let's get back to getting some jewelry on our guy. I really want this to look like it is fitting on him. He's got a big neck. So what I'm doing is I'm just trying to situate it to make it look like it should fit as a necklace. I'm going to try something a little harsh. I'm just like pull this on. That's not going to work either. I mean, it will work. I just need to make it work. And then it depends, again, do I use the fish or not? And I'm kind of struggling with the background, even though I was singing the praises of this wonderful looking illustration. I'm not sure if it's going to work. I mean, it does work. And I still have some paper here that's just kind of bugging me in this area. So I'm going to just use the tip of the scissors. I'm being a little hasty there. Okay, it fortunately came out pretty well. I like my black and white goldfish. I should probably just go ahead and apply him here. I think he would look good there. So I can go ahead and apply him, comfortable with him. And we have our other little goldfish. Not sure where I want to put him. He doesn't have a lot of good contrast with this background. Maybe there, maybe. And it's kind of like an afterthought. I do want to use the Cartier. There was some right here I think I wanted to get rid of. It's just right there. It's not a big deal. I'm just being extra picky now. And that red background is, you can see it between the little areas, little spaces on the jewelry. It's not taking, it won't take away from the collage. It's not a big deal at all. Oh my gosh, that's almost like Mickey Mouse. I don't know. That's what I fell in love with. I could do something like this. Does he need jewelry? Yes, he needs jewelry. I don't know why. I'm really stuck on that. So then, this. For this. Maybe I don't have to do that. See, doing something like this, where I'm just covering his whole head, is very interesting also, because he does read as male still, and we have that background. I think I'm just going to commit this. I think that'll look good. And I'm feeling a little heartbroken. I'm not sure if this is going to work, so I'm going to go back and check out and see what else I might have. I had looked at this. The problem is it's not a good contrast with the black and white. I don't really, it might work. It might work. Let's get back to the drawing board for a second. Okay, change in plans. I was deeply in love with this, and you have to be willing to toss things off to the side if it's not working. Kill your darlings, as they say. I had this piece that I was drawn to and pulled out of the same magazine as We Got Our Gentleman, and I think it's gonna work. I like the way it's looking. I'm pleased with the juxtaposition and the color, so I think we're gonna go with that. Not sure if Cartier is going to be making an appearance. I am so unsure about our fish head. But what I would like to do, if I use the fish head, if I have it going over the magenta background and then use another background and Photoshop something solid, it might be pretty interesting. And then we'll have this unk. I'm not sure about the other fish though. Not sure. It's gonna be a little, maybe just a simple collage. Oh, remember this? I was playing with this too. I was like, do I wanna maybe use this also as a background? That might be interesting. Yeah, actually that might be very interesting, but it's gonna be massively secondary to everything else. So let's go ahead and finish this guy up and we'll move on and do another collage maybe later, because this got me warmed up and I feel like good things will come out of this. So let's get this guy done. I wanted to add this background, but it made things a little too busy. There's a lot going on, especially at the bottom quadrant of this collage, and then not too much going on up here. So I could always play a little bit more. Could do something like that maybe. I may need to sleep on it just to figure out what it is I might want to do, if anything. Probably by itself like this, it's absurd, it's crazy, and that's too busy with our trout. Well, I already cut off his head. There's not too much more I can do about it. So I think this is it. I think we're just gonna stop here. Could even take off this guy. I'm gonna sleep on it, see how I feel, and you'll see what it's all about in the final image. How about that? I thank you all for watching, and I will see you again next time.